Online dating is perhaps better called online arranging, because there are no online dates, just arrangements made online to meet offline, in the cold hard light of reality, maybe with a witness, maybe with a taser. But who the hell knows what online arranging is? Here, online dating is broken down, just like half of its users. I'm kidding. 25%. I think online dating is fascinating because of its transition from bastion of the incredibly shy or undateable to a completely mainstream option for the everyday normal single, or any sort of freak on the go. Online dating no doubt owes much to personal ads, and you can still find those in newspapers. Joan Ball's marriage agency used computers to match people based on answers to a questionnaire as far back as 1964. In 1965, Operation Match was begun in Harvard to match students using an IBM 1401. Matchmaker.com started life as a bulletin board system in 1983, going online 13 years later, 1 year after Match.com in 1995. The online dating industry was worth just over $1 billion in the US in 2008. Now it's worth something like $2 billion. In China, the industry there is worth 1.6. Of course, people do meet online everywhere, not just on dating platforms. But it's those platforms that are most prevalently used and are most measurable. These sites differ in how they work and how they make their money. Some, such as Plenty of Fish, are mostly free, or are free to scour for your own nefarious ends until you want to send a message. Or some, like Tinder, allow limited interactions unless you pay more. If you pay on Tinder, you can just say yes to everyone. But that doesn't mean they'll ever say yes to you. These companies are, like anything else, not really selling you just their product, but a lifestyle. Look at these people. Aren't they all happy? Except the dog. Marriage, love, sex, some sort of minute flicker of hope that you won't be alone for the rest of your life. That's what online dating appeals to the desire of. That's what it exploits to make its money. And I don't mean that as a criticism. Of course it does. It's not going to show two people together who look like 4 years ago they were both very lonely and now they're just very unhappy. The artificiality of online dating is spun as a plus.
Only eHarmony.com takes the time to find you that perfect someone.
All the About Me sections you have to fill in, the multiple choice questions, the rating yourself in terms of whatever, are all meant to get rid of time wasters, match you with only compatible profiles, or at least put some information about yourself out there that you probably wouldn't bring up in the first 5 minutes of a real-life conversation. Oh, really nice talking to you for the first time. I really like long walks on the beach. My favourite colour is blue. My favourite movie is The Human Centipede Part 2. And my partner's height is quite important to me. What's that noise? Jumbo, get off the line! I'm talking to a lady! But there are two problems with this. First, let's be honest, what you write in your profile about liking movies and fun, and sometimes going out and sometimes staying in, can certainly put people off. But it's probably never going to win them around if they don't like your picture. I'm not sure I can say profile pictures are everything, but as in real life, people's appearances give us a lot of information. Their class or economic status, maybe what they think of themselves, their confidence, how good they look in Ferengi makeup. And of course, not that this would matter at all, because there are no shallow people in the world, their attractiveness. But photos can be flattering and unflattering. When you meet someone who you've only ever seen before in photos, often their body language, the way they move, can change perceptions. Photos don't always capture their subject's vibe. I don't think I like the word vibe. Aura. What I mean is you can look at 100 photos of somebody, but it's not until the first 5 seconds of actually meeting them that you'll realise how irritating they are. Secondly, lots of websites pride themselves on matching people based on compatibility. And this seems to almost always be shared values, shared ethics, similar personality types, and similar interests. These sites that try to portray themselves as the deep option, the option for the singleton serious about finding love, are really as superficial as setting two friends up on a blind date because they both like photography. I don't see why people who share some traits are more compatible than other people who are very different. Surely it's really all about connecting. Surely fruitful relationships, romantic or otherwise, are much more about being on the same wavelength and about clicking than they are about having the same interests or seeing things in the same way or being the same person. eHarmony can ask you all the personality questions under the sun. What sort of fatwa would I be? But it can't really tell who you are and what you're like. You're never going to get the same insight into who a person is, being matched with them online and sending each other emails over 2 weeks, that you would by talking to them for 5 minutes face to face. It's never going to be able to look into somebody's eyes and tell you if they're bullshitting you or not. Although I would like to see a "how sincere are you" question, with very sincere on both ends of the scale. I'm not really convinced that online dating is any better than just going to a bar. Yes, you don't know who in the bar shares your interests, but at the same time, you can suss them out much more quickly. OkCupid isn't going to be able to tell you that the guy you've been talking to and even had a Skype call with really smells like shit. I think it's these sorts of assumptions and questions that gave online dating the reputation it is finally shaking off. That it's a home of people who are too shy to approach people they like, people who have something wrong with them, or people who are just weird. Of course, whilst in my opinion, these sites don't capture the essence of who people are, they do capture a lot of data about them. They are great data mines. Now, those are all negatives. I think there's a good portion of people who do meet someone online they truly connect with. And I think there's a good portion of people who deep down aren't even looking for that, but rather someone who fits a certain socio-economic criteria and doesn't turn up to your best friend's wedding in a tracksuit. Can't knock it, it's worked for 100,000 years. I mean, getting together because of the social criteria, not the tracksuit. But I bet tracksuits do endure. I wonder if those who use online dating because they're not very good at approaching people, because they're nervous or shy or whatever, are really doing themselves a disservice. If chatting someone up makes you vomit in your mouth, you're never going to get over that by lurking on the internet. I mean, until you go on an actual date. By the way, the Pew Research Centre reckons that 1/3 of online dating service users never actually go on a date with anyone they meet there. Many services have been accused of purposefully allowing or even creating bogus profiles to keep people interested or to look more gender balanced. Ashley Madison's terms of service say that some accounts are for amusement purposes only, and a data breach in 2015 seemed to point to bots being used by the site itself. There are many accusations about sites sending people messages they can't read until they buy a subscription, finding once a subscription is bought, the message is no longer there. Some companies are obviously more reputable than others. I think it's important to mention too the number of scams that are run through these platforms. They range from someone simply contacting a user with a link that leads to something like a cam show or a dodgy website where users can talk for a fee, to full-on conning of lonely people, whereby a relationship is built online over time and the victim is asked for money, maybe for an emergency, or maybe so they can finally meet the partner of their dreams. In the US in 2013, users of online dating lost $80 million to scams. One aspect I think can be both positive and negative are sites that cater to niche interests. There are plenty of sites which cater to people just looking for casual sex, and there are other sites which cater to people who want to illicitly arrange an extramarital affair in the most secret way possible by setting up an online profile. Clever. Some of these niche sites I would criticise for being superficial. Uniform dating. Why would you specifically want a relationship with somebody who works in a uniform over somebody who doesn't? And what if I'm a secret policeman? I also think sites that only cater to one race are unnecessary. I mean, if some people are only attracted to a specific race, can't they just use a filter button? However, niche sites such as Christian dating sites or Muslim dating sites I don't think are superficial. People's religions are important to them, and I guess that is a time saver. But again, it seems like the unique selling point of such sites could just be knocked off by a big player like eHarmony or Match.com putting in a filter button. And of course you get websites like the infamous BeautifulPeople.com, where applicants have to be voted in purely on looks, and where people are turned away from offline physical events for not being beautiful. Ugly people of the world unite. Don't hate them because they're beautiful, hate them because they're vile. In my view, online dating has helped to commodify romance. Maybe not in its entirety, but I think for a huge amount of people, finding someone you like has become very depersonalised. I don't think meeting people online is bad, it clearly works for some people. But I think many facets of what online dating is meant to do, lead you up to an actual date, are ineffective or irrelevant. I think a lot of it leads to people finding someone who ticks off a checklist, rather than an unexpected connection. But of course, as I mentioned, that is what some people want to do. So it has a place, it works for them. I don't think it's more efficient than just meeting people and talking to them in the everyday. And I don't think it's anywhere near as effective at building social skills and helping people learn from failure. Go up to somebody you like, ask for their phone number and get rejected. It hurts, but you've learnt something and you've become a little bit more robust. Send somebody a message on an online dating service and never hear back from them, and... However, if you're someone who really doesn't get to meet many new people, maybe because of work or where you live, online dating is probably a good solution. I'm going to end this video by telling you the story of the saddest piece of writing that I've ever come across. A few years ago I was researching something or other, and I happened to find a post on a forum where somebody was looking for a dating service which would allow them to find an adult woman with the mind of a child. Which is weird and horrible because they didn't have the mind of a child. Anyway, that's not the saddest piece of writing. One of the replies was somebody who said, well, you should check out this site. And the site was specifically for people who are disabled. And there's lots of disabled people on this website, people who have learning difficulties, quadriplegics, people in wheelchairs and so on. And I was astonished that it existed, to be honest, and I clicked around and I found one particular profile, and it was a woman who was in her late 40s. I seem to remember she was 47, and she was a nice looking lady, and her profile said, "Thank you for reading my profile. When I was 23 years old, I was in a car crash and have been in a wheelchair ever since. 3 years ago, I started to be able to talk again. I'm looking for a male companion to be friends with, maybe more. I enjoy painting and watching movies. I have 3 cats who I love very much." And I think that is such a great piece of writing because it is a window into that woman's life, into her entire life. And I think about that and I think, well, you know, if online dating can allow this woman to meet someone, or if it just gives her hope, well, that's a good thing. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and join me next time where I'll be talking about censorship. See you then.